You're listening to the official Reformed Stoic podcast, covering politics, philosophy, theology, conspiracy theories. I'm ready to get to the bottom of this life. Are you? Join Wolfgang, Sketty Squad, Purity Gang, as we strive to take dominion over this dying planet. I am Reformed Stoic, and this is my podcast. yo. Might need to take a minute to get the mics going. Why? Oh, there we go. There we go. I just accidentally muted the mic. Mic check, mic check. There we go. All right. And I'm supposed to turn all this stuff on. Okay. Screwed up the intro a little bit, but we're all hoodie. And that's not supposed to be like that. Let's go. Let's fix the intro. Right on. How we doing, guys? We're back for another one. Mic check, mic check. So, I think we're going to try the shorter format today. Just kind of going over a little bit of whatever is going on. A lot of nothing burgers lately. It's been a long couple of years, guys. I think people are ready for a quiet, peaceful holiday season. I know I am. So, let's see a little bit of what we got in store for you today. A couple of reality stars that I've never heard of are going to prison for 19 years for tax fraud. Let's get it. Something about Biden and turkeys that looks really cheesy. Twitter controversy. Oh my gosh, Trump isn't banned from Twitter anymore. Juicy. And then the hero from the club shooting. And then we're going to hear some words of wisdom on the subject of propaganda in the news from Noam Chomsky. And then a little bit about Christian socialism. So let's just go ahead and get it rolling, guys. I want to watch more Freaks and Geeks. That's what I'm thinking. I want to get comfy. So without further ado, new segment. You're listening to the Reformed Stoic News segment. Let's go. Alrighty. First up, we got ABC 7. Reality TV stars Todd and Julie Chrisley sentenced to combined 19 years in prison.
Today for Todd and Julie Chrisley, the reality TV show couple convicted of fraud and tax evasion charges. A federal judge sentenced Mr. Chrisley to 12 years in prison and Mrs. Chrisley to 7 years. That is less than prosecutors were seeking, but considerably more than the defense had hoped for. Prosecutors said that the couple took out fraudulent bank loans to support their lavish lifestyle and used their television production company to hide income from the IRS.
Hello, I'm Mark Brown. Get more great ABC7 content by clicking the subscribe.
Yeah, the IRS will get you, guys. Watch out for that IRS, especially if you're in the public eye on television. If you're making all kinds of money in everybody's eye on TV and then you're yoinking the system, IRS is going to get you. They got all kinds of new people working for the IRS now. They want their money more than ever. And their son just got into a terrible car accident. Yikes. You sentenced him in a candy store. He's going to love it. Let's not lie. He's going to have an amazing time. Why do people think that? I don't think he's as upset as she is about going to jail. Oh, he must be secretly gay or something. Killers don't get those kind of sentences. Yep, you got to pay the IRS, guys. They want their money big time. KITV, Biden pardons Thanksgiving turkeys. No ballot stuffing, no foul play. So just like one of those cheesy news segments where it's like, oh, the president and a turkey for Thanksgiving. Just literal nothing burgers in the most literal sense ever.
On the heels of a wedding and a presidential birthday, the weekend's celebratory atmosphere at the White House continuing Monday. President Joe Biden making much ado about stuffing at the 75th anniversary of the National Thanksgiving Turkey presentation with some political puns.
The votes are in. They've been counted and verified. There's no ballot stuffing. There's no foul play.
And a pair of poultry pardons for Chocolate and Chip.
Based on their temperament and commitment to being productive members of society, I hereby pardon. Yes. I hereby pardon Chocolate and Chip.
The Birds of Honor received VIB treatment on their trot to Washington, basking in glory at the Willard Hotel and gobbling up attention everywhere they went. President Biden dishing out exciting opportunities for the now free birds.
Receiving their presidential pardons today, Chocolate and Chip are going to head to one of the nation's great basketball schools and research universities, North Carolina State.
While also serving a message of gratitude to the country.
We can't forget the reason for Thanksgiving in the first place. Being grateful for what we have and grateful for fellow Americans who we may never meet.
And capping off the festive day, the official Christmas tree also arriving at the White House. In Washington, I'm Chris Wynn reporting.
Wow. I feel like that was made for people who like drink Mountain Dew through an IV. People are like hooked up to a Mountain Dew IV. Oh, this is a turkey. The president stuffed the turkey. Like 50 IQ, dude. A turkey pardoning a turkey. Gotta be a first. He pardoned Hunter. How nice. I love this. Me too. Isn't this adorable? He pardoned his bloodline. Comments are pretty good. Matching waddles, matching brains. It's okay, Joe. I pardon you for everything in Ashley's diary. The only good thing he has done since being in office. Pardoning turkeys, cool. Oh, we have some fun in the White House, don't we? Boy, oh boy, we have fun sometimes in the White House. Alrighty then. Oh, no. Twitter controversy. Elon Musk reverses Trump's ban. Why, IATA? WFAA.
It began with a simple poll. New Twitter owner Elon Musk tweeting out a question on his new social media platform, asking users if Trump should be brought back. Just over 15 million users voted. Trump himself urged supporters to vote for him in the poll, a little more than half voting in favor of reinstatement.
I think it's a terrible mistake. As we showed in the January 6 hearings, the president used that platform to incite that attack on the Capitol.
At the time of the attack on the Capitol, former President Trump's Twitter account had over 88 million followers. He was banned just 2 days later on January 8th. Then, Twitter leadership stating he was at risk of further inciting violence. For now, it appears Trump is sticking with Truth Social, his own social media platform.
I hear we're getting a big vote to also go back on Twitter. I don't see it because I don't see any reason for it.
Trump's current third bid for the White House is shrouded in controversy, now in the crosshairs of a special counsel overseeing multiple investigations into the former president. Several Republicans taking sides, saying the party must head in a new direction.
We just lived through a disheartening election. It should be a wake-up call for all of us.
Personality and celebrity just aren't going to get it done. We can see that.
Let's stop supporting crazy, unelectable candidates in our primaries and start getting behind winners.
And former Vice President Mike Pence also joining Republicans, saying our elected leaders need to do more than just criticize and complain. Ike Ajachi, ABC News, Washington.
Wow, Biden pardoning turkeys, Trump back on Twitter. I feel like this entire country is like a dying mall. It's just like some forgotten dying mall. Everything's shutting down. All of the businesses are becoming like covered with the metal closed stuff. I mean, who cares about this, dude? Who cares about Biden pardoning turkeys? Who cares about Trump and Twitter? I know that a lot of people do, but at the same time, guys, you got to keep in mind all the crazy stuff that the far left does. They're all outraged over Trump doing everything and outraged over this and that. They're not necessarily like the majority of the population. It's a very loud kind of small group. They make a lot of noise, but I can't really imagine people care about this stuff, dude. Trump can't use Twitter again after making Truth Social. It would be bad for his brand. Why would Elon do a vote? It's his company. I just want to show this video to someone in 2000 and see what the reaction would be. I think this is boring. I think life is boring compared to the 2000s. Like the depressing New World Order that's looming over our heads since COVID. It was all like kind of exciting for the last couple of years. But now it's like, yeah, this is it. This is the Great Reset. This is the New World Order. You will eat the bugs. But it's not really interesting anymore. It's like, oh, this is what a totalitarian shithole is like. It's just boring. It's just boring, and people pretend that, like, somebody getting unbanned on Twitter is news. It's, like, not really interesting, dude. The 1984 Brave New World dystopia is boring. Yeah, it's fun when you're reading a book about it, and it's like, wow, that's interesting. It's very interesting reading about a totalitarian shithole, but when you're actually living in one, it's, like, boring. Because things that are interesting aren't really, like, allowed anymore. We don't quite live in a totalitarian shithole, but come on, guys, let's fix it. Let's fix all this stuff. Let's fix the fact that, like, I'm going to run out of material in, like, 10 minutes. It's Monday, you guys. We're gonna wrap it up quick today. The fact that this is news and people care shows you why our society is collapsing here in America. Hey, that's exactly what I just fucking said. Good observation, Zaz and Rise. Self-defeating comment. You gotta pull yourself up by the bootstraps, bucko. You gotta look America in the eyes, give it a firm handshake, and say, country, I'm the man for this job. Self-defeating. That's another boomer aphorism. It's self-defeating. You took yourself out of the game before you even had a shot, bucko. That wasn't a firm handshake. I've given firmer handshakes in my sleep. Explain. You just got defensive with no counterpoint. You're not addicted to Trump. You're addicted socially accepted hate. I'm embarrassed for your cringe. Dude, based comments today. Trump, the guy who lost by more than 7 million votes, that Trump? What about him again? Man, you know, for all of the, like, lectures that the left gives about science, like, actually, like, the left is always trying to jump in and fact check all the time. You guys are aware of the Electoral College, right? I feel like that's the one big time that the right can, like, fact check the left. Actually, did you know about the Electoral College? Did you know about the electoral vote? Cool. Well, another nothing burger down the drain. Here we go. Colorado Springs mayor says hero who disarmed Club Q gunman was trying to protect his family. NBC News. Let's get it.
I had the opportunity before I came here today to talk to Richard Fierro, identified as one of the two heroes that subdued the suspect in this case. And in my opinion, I think the opinion of everyone involved, saved a lot of lives. I won't talk about, you know, the nature of what he told me about the incident. I will just simply talk about, I have never encountered a person who had engaged in such heroic actions that was so humble about it. He simply said to me, I was trying to protect my family.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel.
There goes my hero. A very brave hero. Yeah, good job, dude. Good job. Seriously. Anybody who stops shootings should happen more often, man. We need more heroes. We need more heroes out there. All right, we're just going right through it. No cooking streams tonight, guys. Noam Chomsky explains the propaganda model in 5 minutes. Manufacturing consent, part 1. Hopefully we're all good here. Yeah, let's learn a little bit about manufacturing consent from Noam Chomsky. Let's get it.
I'm quoting now your children if you can give us the distilled version, the 5-minute lecture on what the propaganda model is. And you wrote the book originally in 1988, and then I want to sort of push you on how that stands now.
Well, actually, I should say that most of the work on the propaganda model itself was due to my colleague, Edward Herman. He's a professor of finance. In fact, professionally, he was a specialist in corporate power and corporate control, wrote the standard work on it. And it's, I mean, I agreed with it, but I can't take credit for it. It was mostly his initiative. And I didn't totally agree for reasons I'll tell you. But what it is a discussion of the institutional structure of the media. It's looking at the U.S. media, so not state media, but corporate media. And asks an obvious question. If you look at the institutional structure and you ask what content you would expect to flow from it, what would you predict? And briefly, without going into the details, the media are huge corporations, parts of larger conglomerates. They sell, like other businesses, they sell a product to a market. The market is other businesses, advertisers. The product is people. So they sell people to advertisers. So television, for example, makes no profit if you turn on the tube, but they get it from the advertisers. And the newspapers mostly lose money when you subscribe. They do better from the advertising. So the first part of it is it's major corporations selling people to other corporations. And then there are other factors, like it's very easy to show that the corporate system is very tightly linked to government. People flow in and out. And then the government itself produces just plain state propaganda, and that enters. And other factors like that. Now we ask, well, what would you expect to happen? What you'd expect to see overwhelmingly is a choice of issues and framing of issues which reflects the interests and concerns of the state-corporate nexus. That's what you'd predict. And then the rest of the book is running through examples. It's been a little misunderstood. It's a lot of journalists regard it as a criticism of journalists. It's exactly the opposite. In fact, about a third of the book, the latter third, I suspect nobody ever read it, is a defense of journalists against attacks from liberals, from Freedom House. You know, the Freedom House wrote a vicious attack, couple volumes of attacks on American journalists for stabbing the United States in the back in Vietnam and losing the Vietnam War and so on. And they, it's two volumes, one commentary and the other the documentary background for it. And I'm kind of a masochist, so I actually read the documents. I'm probably the only person who ever read them. When you read the documents, you find that the commentary is totally falsified. And in fact, what it shows is that the journalists did an honest, courageous job. What they saw, they described accurately, and the criticisms are mostly fabricated. But they did it within the framework of an interpretation which is super chauvinistic. So, for example, if the United States carried out some atrocity, it was a mistake, or the other side somehow caused it to do it, and then they leave things out. But the actual reporting was first-rate, and I think you can trust it. It's typically the case. So it's a defense of journalism which the journalists didn't like.
But how are the journalists able to do that kind of reporting that you do trust if they are simultaneously framing it in a way that you don't trust? I mean,
journalism's, you know, it's honest professionals. They have integrity. They, especially working in the field, takes a lot of courage, and they do an excellent job. But within a narrow structure, like there are certain topics that just won't report, not out of their, it might be editorial pressure. And when they do report it, the framework is essentially a patriotic framework. You can see it all the time. I mean, we give lots of examples.
And in the book you distinguish, or you say that the media distinguishes between worthy victims and unworthy victims, and worthy victims tend to be the victims of the United States enemies, and unworthy victims of those who are the victims of the United States allies.
Are its clients.
Yeah.
So when, say, the Russians invade Afghanistan, the Afghans are worthy victims because the enemy is attacking them. And in fact, reporting from Afghanistan during the Russian invasion was from the side of the Mujahideen. That's where reporters went to work with the guerrillas. And when the U.S. invaded Afghanistan, it's exactly the opposite. Reporters didn't go work with the Taliban, you know. They reported from the point of view of the American army.
So in which case, I'm interested in how sincere your expression of admiration for journalists is.
Pardon?
I want to push you on how sincere your admiration that you expressed before for journalists. How sincere can that be if you're saying that they locate themselves on this side or that side, depending on what's going on? They accept the frame and the narrative. That sounds like a criticism to me.
Well, actually, that's the one point in which Ed and I somewhat disagreed about the whole thing. I think to have the book refer to the media is too narrow, because I think that applies to the whole intellectual class. That's the way intellectuals are, overwhelmingly, all through history. Intellectuals overwhelmingly are servants of power. Now, intellectuals write history, so when you read what they write, they look very noble and adversarial and so on. But when you look at what actually happened, all the criticisms we make of the media apply to them, and that's significant because none of the institutional factors hold in that case. The institutional factors that we looked at have to do with the corporate structure, you know, the advertisers who purchase it, but that's not true.
And that doesn't apply to the academy?
That doesn't apply to college professors. There are other pressures, but not those. But the outcome is pretty much the same.
This is, again, slightly off the topic, but if that is the case, what made you so different?
Intellectuals support the power structures. Interesting observations there. I've never read any Deepak Chopra, Eckhart Tolle. I'm pretty sure that's some new ager, and that's exactly what I think. They're just new age, waste of time, counterculture, pseudo LARP. You're not gonna learn the truth from that guy, buddy. I'm here in 2022. I wish more of the youth could be more in tune and less programmed. I hear that. I love how he does not take credit for it. That is a man of ethical and moral integrity. Critical thinking and basic personal finance aren't taught in grade school. Home economics, shop, and childcare are required in most public schools, though. Obviously, what makes Chomsky different is that he is conscious of the propaganda model and thinks and writes beyond it. Good stuff to think about, guys. Most people don't escape. Most people don't escape the machine. All right, well, we had a pretty quiet little Monday here today. I'm just going to go ahead and play us out with this final 10 minutes on how should Christians think about socialism from Desiring God. We watch this channel a lot here. Let's go ahead and give them a sub, and let's see what they got.
No doubt because Bernie Sanders is making a serious run for the presidency in the United States, this question is on the minds of some podcast listeners. One, a listener named Christian, writes in to ask this. Hello, Pastor John. How should Christians view socialism? What would you say, Pastor John?
Well, I suppose I should put all of my misgivings up front to say I'm no expert in political science or economics, so take it for what it's worth. Here we go. I think the first thing I should say is that the church, in the church, no one should go hungry. No one should be without a place to stay. No one should fail to get the health care they need. No one should go without a job if it's possible for believers to help them find one, and so on. And all of this should happen through the free and uncoerced help of other believers. When Luke writes in Acts 2:44, all who believed were together and had all things in common, And they were selling their possessions and belongings and distributing the proceeds to all as any had need. What he means is that every need was being met by other believers, even if they had to sell things that they owned in order to help meet them. And this was done freely. It didn't remove, but rather presumed the ownership of private property. Indeed, all of the Bible, Old and New Testament, assumes both the legitimacy and, I think, necessity of personal ownership. Thou shalt not steal makes no sense where no one has a right to keep what is his. The reason I stress that all of this is uncoerced, free, not forced, is because of the heavy emphasis that Paul puts on giving to the poor in 2 Corinthians 8 and 9, freely, cheerfully, not under compulsion. I remember I had a big debate when I was in Germany with the professor and other students because of the way they fund the church, the state church there through taxes. I said, that just doesn't fit. Without compulsion, cheerfully and freely. In other words, there is built into the Christian faith an inner impulse by the Holy Spirit through the gospel to make sacrifices so that others have their needs met. And there is no such impulse built into human nature or the human heart apart from God's grace. And it is so vital that this kind of love and mercy and sacrifice be free and uncoerced, that this is laid down as a principle by Paul in 2 Corinthians 9, by Peter in 1 Peter 5, as he's instructing the elders there. Now, socialism, as I understand it, I don't know much about it, but socialism, as I understand it, refers to a social and economic system that through legal or governmental or military coercion, in other words, you go to jail if you don't do this, establishes social ownership at the expense of private or personal ownership, or you could say, where coercion is used to establish social control, if not ownership, at least control of the means of production in society, and thus through control effectively eliminate many of the implications and motivations of private ownership. In other words, socialism borrows the compassionate aims of Christianity in meeting people's needs while rejecting the Christian expectation that these things will not be coerced or forced. Socialism, therefore, gets its attractiveness at certain points in history where people are drawn to the entitlements that socialism brings, and where people are ignorant or forgetful of the coercion and the force required to implement it, and whether or not that coercion might in fact backfire and result in greater poverty or drab uniformity, or worse, the abuse of the coercion as we saw in the murderous states like the USSR and Cambodia. It may be that Bernie Sanders is naming things in our society that need addressing. I don't doubt that's the case. There are no doubt real injustices that make it harder for the poor to move out of poverty and make it easier for the rich to do wrong and get away with it. But I doubt that holding up Denmark's economic model, which he does, as the way forward is the path of wisdom. Forbes, for example, reports that out of a total population of 5.6 million, a little more than 2 million in Denmark, a little more than 2 million are state pensioners, unemployed, sick, or on social transfer payments for other reasons, and another 800,000 are employed by the public sector. That's half the population employed by the state or sustained by money channeled through the state. Or to put it another way, Out of 5.6 million people in Denmark, there are only about 1.8 million that are not directly dependent on the state for payments of some sort. And even among this group, there is high focus on cheap, subsidized child care, free health care, child bonus payments, subsidized housing, and a large number of other ways to secure additional income from the state. Just an example, students get 5 years of free tuition at state universities, and I read of a married student who gets $900 stipend from the state and free childcare. So basically living totally off the state for those university years. Now, political liberals, they analyze this all over Europe right now, and everybody says these systems are under pressure. That's the word that's used by liberals. They're under pressure. Like most of the entitlement states of Europe. Conservatives say it's a ticking time bomb. In other words, almost everybody says it can't go on. The crisis in Greece is the forerunner, and no matter how angry people may get when their entitlements are threatened or taken away, you can't create tax income out of nowhere. And the support base is not going to be there indefinitely. Not to mention other disincentives that plague socialist economies over the long haul. So for Bernie Sanders or anyone else to commend a socialism like that of Denmark as the system that is going to do things well for us is short-sighted, to say the least. So in general, I would say that the impulses of biblical Christianity include 1, compassion for the disadvantaged, 2, justice under law without respect to status, 3, freedom to create and produce, and 4, private property. And my own sense is that history and reason and further biblical reflection lead to the conclusion that freedom and property rights lead to greater long-term well-being, or like we say today, flourishing for the greatest number. And it should not go unsaid, lastly, that every economic and political system will eventually collapse where there are insufficient moral impulses to restrain human selfishness and encourage honesty and good deeds even when no one is watching.
That's very interesting. Thank you, Pastor John. I appreciate your thoughts on economics and socialism. We don't get a lot of questions on socialism, I'll admit, but we do get a ton of questions on spiritual depression. We are the joy people, after all, Christian hedonists at Desiring God. So what do we do when spiritual depression descends into our lives? What do we do? How do we respond? John Piper will explain next time. I'm your host, Tony Reinke. For more on this podcast, visit us online at desiringgod.org/Ask Pastor John. We'll see you tomorrow.
All right. This is a very complex subject. A lot of people in chat just blurting out that Jesus was a socialist. He was not a dictator. This is where you need to start drawing comparisons between secular humanism and Christianity. And people immediately point out the similarities. Jesus wanted to help people. It's about feeding the sick. It's about clothing and feeding and sheltering the sick, taking care of the poor. Jesus wasn't rich. Jesus was a king, or Jesus was a king who was poor, and he hung out with the poor and impoverished. It's easy to point out the similarities between humanism and Christianity, but there are very, very vast differences as well, namely the fact that humanism is secular, and ultimately it is anti-Christian. It is said that altruism is the devil wearing a mask. It's dangerous, it's poison, and there needs to be long long, deep discussions about this, not just like, oh, Jesus was a socialist, so we got to be socialist. So here's the keys to the socialist regime, and you call the shots, blah, 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 blah. Just, boop, Jesus was a socialist. We're socialists. Let's socialist it. Let's socialist it. Nope, that needs to be discussed for hours and hours and hours, and people need to read books and really dangerous stuff just kind of flying out of people's mouths without even thinking about it. First of all, I believe that socialism works when people are really on a team. This country isn't a team. We're not a team here in this country. So, how can you not want people to eat? How can you not want people clothed? How can you not want people to have health care? It's just not ideal when it's not your people, when they're not on your team. We're not everybody in it together in this country. Not everybody loves everybody. People got their middle finger up where they're like, haha, you're paying my health care. Haha, you're paying my bills. Haha, you have to work and I don't. Fuck you, you're paying for my shit. It's because we're not really allies. We're not really on a team. And that's why, for me, first and foremost, you'd want to have a country that's united by something. You want everybody to be on the same page somehow. And for me, it would be Christianity. One of the first things this guy said is that within the church, everyone should be fed and clothed. I mean, the kind of networks that a lot of churches run are socialist on a small scale, and it's certainly not an authoritarian scale, and it's outside of government and politics. But yeah, I don't know, guys. Like, socialism is most certainly an intellectual topic. I still want to read Marx's work. Ultimately, I've said it a number of times, Marx was trying to solve the very real problem of the Industrial Revolution and capitalism. It's cold. It's anti-human. Some people don't fit the mold, and then a lot of people just don't have a shot. I ultimately think that, we have seen the failures of socialism and communism. We have seen that it's a failed system. Capitalism is also a failed system, ultimately. I think what the Bible shows is that all systems of government are ultimately failures. Government is always happening outside of what's fully Christian and good. That's how it's been for a long time. Exactly, socialism won't work in a country that is 50-50 split with multiple races and religions. Socialism will work in one race, one religion, basically national socialism. And then, you spend a lot of time trying to calm everybody down and be like, well, I'm not a Nazi and I'm not Hitler. But yeah, basically your team, people who you identify with, people who are united by something national, and then taking care of each other. Socialism, more or less, National Socialism is the way to go. Hitler blew it. But anyway, I don't really know how deep I want to get into this discussion right now. It's something to think about. Man, if I was going to write a book, I think writing a book on the differences between humanism and Christianity might not be such a bad task. Because that is one of the most important battles that Christians face. Every SJW, McDonald's drive-thru, bachelor's in arts is like, but didn't Jesus say feed people? But didn't Jesus say love your enemies? But didn't Jesus, these people who hate God, people who hate the Bible are going to try to hold you to your Christian ethics. And yeah, it is part of being a Christian to be merciful. It does say to love your enemies. It does say to feed your enemies because we're good people. Because Christians are the good guys. And the secular humanists who are trying to maneuver you by holding you to your superior morals that are superior to their morals, because that's ultimately not their morals. They'd stab you in the back. They'd fucking step on your fingers when you're off of a cliff. So they're holding you to your superior moral worldview that they don't hold. It's disgusting, and it is kind of a tricky battle. And yeah, I don't know. I might think about that as far as a book that would really be worth my time to think about writing. Humanism versus Christianity. That might be a valiant effort. Something that might actually be of use to someone. Well, Christians fail all the time, Herman. That's the thing. Christians fail all the time. So, oops, we didn't let you ruin our country. Oh, well, I guess I'll just ask God for forgiveness. Instead of blowing it by cranking it or blowing it by swearing, maybe you should blow it by not being merciful on your enemies. Maybe you should blow it by defeating your enemies and then apologize for it later. I mean, I'm starting to kind of just feel Christians blow it all the time. Maybe that's where you should blow it, is like not letting your enemies trample you. Ultimately, turning the other cheek does not mean letting people trample you. The wisdom of Christ sowed a lot of division. It wasn't easy. It made it difficult for people, and our enemies are trying to use it against us. I'm chatty. Rules for the radicals. Force your enemy to play by all their own rules, even if you don't believe them, to hamper them. Yep, Christians have to deal with that all the time. So I think this study, this topic of why is Christianity not the same as humanism, I think that really is something I could consider focusing on. Maybe making some videos on it, doing a topic on it, writing a book about it. It's a worthwhile topic. Secular humanism, socialism, feeding people, it's very in line with globalism and climate change versus Christianity. Like, what are the values of how to live your life as a Christian versus humanism? So, anyway, guys, that's just about 45 minutes. Very short stream today. It's been an interesting day. Right out the gate, I struggled with the garbage. Man, I had a rough workout today. Yeah, I've the cheat days are starting to add up. Haven't been doing jump roping today. I jump roped and then shadow boxed after, and it was really rough. It's really rough. I got to keep the cardio flowing. That's all nonsensical, lunatic propaganda, sexy Santa. It doesn't really matter what color Jesus was, but ultimately the Bible really suggests that he had fair skin and fair complexion. And you've been brainwashed, sexy Santa. You need to learn from scholars, theologians. You need to learn from the experts. A lot of people out there who hate the Bible. A lot of people out there who hate God. A lot of people who hate the Christian way of life, who hate the Christian patriarchal legacy and man. If you believe what your professors teach you, I'm not going to say to never believe what your professors teach you, but you got to be wary. You got to be willing to question, especially when it comes to this. Yeah, professors just really can't resist talking some smack about the Bible, talking some slander about God. I've heard it a lot. I've heard it a lot throughout my life. European men did a lot for Christianity. Ultimately, the Western world. The Western world, after the fall of the Roman Empire, white Christian men did their part. Everybody needs to back off. Anyway, that's all I got for today, guys. God bless you. We'll probably do coffee tomorrow. And that's that. We're gonna still do the Wednesday podcast as well. We're still doing 3 days a week. All right, peace out, guys. God bless. I'll check the Discord, but I'm ending the stream. Peace out. God bless.